What's going on, everybody? Hey, think about this. You have a relationship, you have a couple, a mother, a father, but then you have these little kids. And it seems like every time something happens, it seems like the kids are trying to tear you apart. It seems like the kids are always siding with one parent or the other just to get their way. If that's you, then you're not alone. You see, as a family, we have to, and as parents, we have to find ways that we can parent as a team. And so in this video, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to parent as a team. You figure most couples, we all experience this. We experience times with one another where one spouse wants to handle it a certain way, a different discipline. Another parent want to handle it another way. And a lot of it has to do with, a lot of times, how we were brought up. You see, a lot of times we coach. You always say with sports, we coach the way that we were coached. And we parent sometimes the way we were parented. See, there's some parents who are very strict. There are some parents who are disciplinary. There's some parents that are kind of helicopter. They'll just give you everything that you want because they think that it's best for you. But what happens when you need to discipline a child? A lot of times what's going to happen is the way that you were developed, the way you were disciplined is the way that you will start to continuously discipline your children. And so understanding how to parent as a team, how to stay a united front. I used to love it when I used to play football, and I used to always tell people, listen, if you can get the other team to start going against each other, if you can get the other team to start pointing the finger at each other, start blaming each other, start start criticizing, complaining to each other, if you can get them to do that, you got them. If you can look to the other sideline and see them, see them throwing down their hat, throwing down their helmet at each other, having their finger pointing in their coaches' faces, and all this stuff, you got them. And so the key to every team being successful is being able to stick together. And the key for parents to be able to discipline and raise your child, okay, how to disagree, how to walk through, how to win when it comes to families has everything to do with you understand a few points. You see, I remember when I used, as a father, man, raising kids, kids can have a sense within them. They can sense when parents are not in sync. They can sense where there's a disagreement. They can sense they can be looking this way, but their eyes is over here, and they're just thinking like, I just said this, let me see how they react. See, if you're a parent, you already know what I'm talking about. It seems like, man, the kids are here to divide us. You know what I mean? They're like the devil in kids' clothing with Nikes on. But nevertheless, we have to find a way to how can we stick together. And so in this video, I'm going to share some personal things. I'm going to share some different tips on, man, how do we parent as a team? How do we stay together? How do we have conflict? How do we have disagreements? And how do we build a united front with mutual purpose, mutual respect, with mutual benefit to raise our children, the right way? And how do, at the end of the day, we stay together? Because remember this, our kids are watching us. They're watching what we say. They're watching what we do. And they're constantly taking it in. And although they may not say nothing at the time, as they get older, just as you, when you're older, you're as a parent, you're walking out the ways that you experience. Your children will do the same. Your children will do the same thing as well. And if you're a kid watching this as well, I tell you, hey man, cut that out. But here's one of the things I want to let you know. That listen, you can actually help your parents and you can help your family. This is all about family development here as we're living all pro, in this family edition. And so here are some tips that I found out that you can do to help you guys parent and stay as a team. Keep this family together. Number one is to provide backup. See, you gotta, listen, before I went out on the field, I talked to my teammates and found out what are we gonna do when we get into this situation. Okay, when Peyton Manning is under center and he's hiking the ball and the running back is 10 yards deep, or and we're down and they're on this yard mark, what are we going to do? Or hey, if we're losing in the fourth quarter and it's hot outside, what are we going to do? What play are we going to run? How are we going to overcome these things? So it's the same thing in your family. You have to decide before you get into the situation what you're going to do, because if you don't decide before the situation, when you get in it, sometimes emotions can take control and you don't make the best logical decision for you and your family. So number one, provide backup. Let the other parent know that, listen, we're going to be a united front. Matter of fact, we're going to make a rule. We're going to make a rule that if one person disciplines the kids, the other parent just backs them up. If they discipline a child in a certain way, the other one just backs them up. Now, granted, you got to have the discussion beforehand to say, okay, what is off limits? What won't we do? Okay, have that conversation first, because, and then when you go into it, then you say, you know what, this is what we're gonna do. I remember growing up when I was young. You know what I mean? My mom back in those days, man, we had the belts, we had the thin belts, and we had the big belts. But then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? My mom started talking to people next door, Miss Beverly. And Miss Beverly had a different edition. Miss Beverly used to have the telephone cords, okay? And these things left marks and whelps and all that stuff. And so my mom's version of the way she kept us in line was, you know, when it's time to get a whooping, go get the belt, go get the switches. But my dad's version of it was different. See, my dad didn't ever do that. My dad didn't really beat us. My mom beat us. My mom disciplined us in those ways, but my dad didn't. But I remember when we would get disciplined, if my dad was around, when we go to get disciplined, we tend to try to find dad. You know what I'm saying? When my mom trying to discipline, we try to find dad. Why? Because we want to get out of it. We want to basically turn them against each other so that way we can try to lessen the discipline, or at least lessen the blows that we're about to take. But if mom was home by herself and dad was out, oh my goodness, you in for a whooping. And so understanding that, what do? Number one, you stand together. What are we willing to do? What are we willing not to do? So in that situation, you say, hey, what we don't do, we don't hit our kids with our hands. Or you say, hey, we don't hit our kids with our belt. We don't do this, that, and the other. Here's what we do. And so now, in the presence of both of them, instead of us trying to look to find out where my dad is at, and if he's going to let us off the hook and say, okay, Berta, that's enough. Okay, instead of doing that, and now my mom feel like, man, you are usurping my authority here. You don't even know everything about what's going on. But instead of her feeling defensive, and instead of my dad feeling like he got to rescue us, the fact that you guys stay together as parents, you say, listen, I'm going to provide backup. And I'm not going to undermine your authority. We're going to make this decision and we're going to go forward. So remember, that's the first thing. Make sure you provide backup. The next thing is basically, arrive kind of at the same place when you think about it. Find a way that you can both proceed. You know what I mean? Find a way that you can help, that you can kind of help your children understand that, listen, we're doing this as a unit. Me and your mom or me and your dad, we agree. Like, we're walking this thing out, and tell them why. Because this is what we want. This is why we're disciplining you. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Because of this. This is what can happen if you do develop in this and you learn the lesson. And this is what can happen to you if you don't understand it. Because if you don't do that, if you don't help the children understand why you're doing what you're doing, then at the end of the day, as always, remember this: rules without relationship equals rebellion. And so if you have some rules, but you haven't established a relationship that this is about relating to them in their development, then they'll naturally turn to rebellion. And so again, understand that you guys want to arrive in the same place. Like, where are we going with this? Why are we doing this? Why are we disciplining our children? Why? What constitutes what discipline? And so again, it's all about talking this thing out. Remember I said, I'm going to keep going back to communication is the number one thing when it comes to relationships, right? And successful relationships. We got to have this conversation first. Can't just get right in the middle and say, I'm just going to do what I need to do. No, you got to understand what is it that you're trying to do at the end of the day, okay? And so again, come to the same place, okay, as well, so you know you're on the same page. The next thing, think about this. Every parent may not feel the same about everything. See, there's certain issues that certain parents may have, okay, that means more to them. You take a mother who feels like, they're raising little girls, and they're like, listen, I don't want you out there and I don't want you out there and just hanging around boys, this, that, and the other. And I want your clothing to fit on you a certain way, because they may feel like, because as a young lady, I don't want nobody taking advantage of you. Even though the father feels the same way, but the mom may say, I have some personal experience with this, and I want to make sure that nobody's looking at you a certain way, and they feel, and that you are presenting yourself in that certain way, that you're not fast and you're not this, that, and the other. And in some cases, in the most unfortunate situation, the mom may have gotten violated or something, and so she wants to make sure, listen, I'm going to prepare my daughters to avoid that. And so for something like that, if a mom sees their daughter, hanging out or doing this and the other, or texting certain inappropriate stuff, that mom may come down really hard, okay, on that daughter. And the dad may be like, hey, baby, she's doing all right. It ain't that bad. And so understanding this, when you're disciplining when you're disciplining your children and as a family, You got to find out who feels most strongly about what, about the issue. And based off of whoever feels most strongly about those issues has to do with, that's the person to let them deal with it. Remember, you're still united, but let that person deal with it. Because at the end of the day, everybody doesn't feel strongly about everything, but you want to basically come as a team. You see, think about a football team. Everybody's not the quarterback. Everybody's not the running back. Everybody's not the wide receiver, although we're all on the offense. And we all have a purpose to help move the ball forward. And that's what you're doing. You're moving the ball forward in the lives of your children. Okay, you're helping them win, although you may have specific roles, although you have different responsibilities, and although you may have different passions. Okay, and so again, when you're thinking about it, when you're talking it over with your significant other or the other parent, just let them know, you know what, I feel really strongly about this, and I need you to support me in this. That's what you tell the other person. Listen, I feel strongly about this, and I just need you to support me. Versus just, let's continue without talking to them about it. You just jump in and you just say, man, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. So again, talking these things out, talking things out. So here's something I like to basically say that you can kind of say when you're going through this stuff, man. You can say, hey, man, I'm just going to ask you to go along with me in this one right here. Because another person may not see it. Or you can say something to the fact that, you know what, I can't say for certain that this may be the best thing to do, but I just need your support right now. You see, having these little conversations does so much for maintaining the team aspect of your family, okay? So remember, who feels most strongly about it, that's the person who kind of deals with that situation, okay? And so the next thing we're going to talk about is talking about parenting decisions when you're calm. There's nothing worse than trying to handle a situation when you are irate, when you're irritated, when you're disturbed, and when you're tired. And so again, as a family, how can you parent as a team? It's talking about the decisions that you're going to make. Where do you go on vacation? What do you do about this situation? How do you find a new job? What do you do about the disregard, disrespect, whatever? Talk about these things when you're calm. Because when you're calm, you're open to receiving new things. It's when you're calm that creative ideas come. When you're calm, you're able to see the big picture. But if you try to handle it right when the pressure's high and the temperature's hot, then more time than likely you're going to fail. More time than likely you're going to get defensive. More time than likely you're more likely to deal with something through emotion and logic. And the long-term effects of what you're doing or what you're saying may go out the window. So is the same thing with your children. Okay, if we're parenting children and we have something that we're bothered by, the best thing to do is start with yourself first. How am I feeling right at this moment? Am I in the right mindset? Am I in the right emotional place to deal with this? Or am I just basically just one trigger away? So you have to ask yourself that question. And if you come away with the answers is, you know what, I think that I can do this now. I believe that I can do this. I believe that I can be rational about this and I can listen, okay? Because all the information may not be known at the time. That I can listen, I can ask questions, and I can share my thoughts and ideas. If so, then it gives you an opportunity, to go, and address that issue, right there. And so understanding that, hey, when you're calm is the best time. The next thing is that, when you're parenting as a team is, and we talked about it, listening during those times is you got to be able to empathize with your child. Okay, and you got to be able to empathize with your child, without throwing your spouse or other significant other under the bus. Okay, that basically means this. There's going to be time that children will go to the parent who they think they can get the most leniency from. Okay, when they get disciplined and they're crying and this, that, and the other, how many of you guys ever face it, right? You discipline your child and then the other parent comes home or less lenient, and then that child runs to the other parent or sniffling, and then all they want is a reaction. What happened? What happened? And then here it goes. Well, dad did this, or mom said this, or mom, and all they want to do is is create divide. We talked about it. You got to stand united. So there's a way in which you can empathize with your child, which basically means this. You can start by letting them know, you know what? I remember when I was your age, I felt this way. Or when I was your age, I thought this way. Or when I was your age, I experienced this. When I was your age, my parents said this. My parents did that. When I was your age, I didn't want to do this, but here's what I learned. You see, your ability to empathize with your child without throwing your spouse or significant other or the parent under the bus is critical, is key to the success of that child and that family. Okay, staying together, and you guys definitely parenting, you know what I'm saying, at you parenting as a team. Is it okay for parents to differ? It sure enough is. But understand this, what is not okay is for you to differ so much that you become so different and you become so separated. And then a child is in a situation because, again, without the unity, there's no place for you to go but down. And so understanding, man, we got to empathize, but we can go ahead and never throw our child, our other spouse on the bus. The next thing is get to know your family, your spouse's family history. That's going to be so critical. Think about it. A cake is only as good as the ingredients in it, okay? An omelet is only good as the ingredients in it. And so sometimes in order for us to understand, even before we get into having children, or even if you do have children, I want you to just take a moment to think, wait a minute, how was this person raised? How were they parented? Because based off of the way they were parented, as we discussed earlier, will be a lot of times determining how they were parented. And if you look back at their past, if you understand some of those things, if you're able to understand those things, it has a lot to do with the perspective that they have. Here's one of the things I realized, man, as I got into a relationship and started and have children. I realized that my children's moms, their children's mom may have been more a little passive, okay, and versus more forward, okay, with raising the children. And so because of that, it can do one or two things. You may have a child who says, hey, my parent was passive, so I'm going to be more forward, assertive. Or you may have another one who says, you know what, I saw my mom being passive, so I'm going to be passive. I turned out okay, so they think anyway. And so they're like, hey, they adopt that. And so they have this one perspective. Like you might have another person, you might have one parent who grew up in poverty. And you grew up in poverty and they had to get coupons all the time, or they always had to look for a deal, or they'll ride 12 miles just because 12 miles across town just because the gas is $1 cheaper or 50 cents cheaper over there, not realizing that, wait a minute, by the time I got over there, I didn't burn more gas than I didn't save because of the dollar. But there's certain mindsets that we develop that we bring into relationships, and we bring it into the lives of our parenting our children. And think about that. If we don't even know what's going into this cake, AKA the life of this child and development of this child, then how can we expect that child to grow up with a full wealth of perspective and understanding if we never looked into the past of the other person to see what went into them? You see, I can always say this, man, all that I know, all that I am in the development of my life, for the most part, in the foundation, is due to my mom. My mom did a tremendous job raising 5 kids by the age of 23. Okay, she kept us in church. She came to the PTA meetings. She came to the track meets, the football games. Okay, she had us reading. She had us doing bridge work over the summertime. She had us circling letters in the newspaper. She had us doing all these different things. She had us memorizing, doing Easter plays, memorizing lines for Christmas poems. I mean, she had all these different things that she had us do. My mom was a learner. She was an educator, and she wanted us to learn. And so we grew up in that way. And so now, therefore, all my family, we're all teachers, we're all educators, we're all counselors, coaches, ministers, and we're all pouring out. And so understanding getting to know, your spouse's family. What contributed to this? On the other side, you may have somebody who grew up in an abusive related family, and they only saw their mom and dad talk and communicate differences by arguing. And that was their go-to. Their go-to was arguing. So now you get into a relationship and you have a difference of opinion, and all of a sudden the only thing you see, kids see their parents do now is argue, or that's your go-to. If there's a disagreement, hey man, the person may say, man, arguing's nothing wrong with that. What do you mean? What's wrong with you? Why are you so thin-skinned? Why are you so sensitive? Because you don't like arguing? No. It's not that I don't like arguing. I just don't see the point in it sometimes. What does that mean? My perspective is built on the fact that I know there's another way that I've experienced to communicate that you may not have experienced yet. And so your go-to may be to argue, to get aggressive. Mine may be to, hey, let's just take a break and let's come back and let's talk it out a certain way. And so getting to know a person's family as you're parenting helps you understand so much about how to parent as a team. And so understanding that. And the next one, you know, the way that you develop yourself as a team, as parent as a team, is that understanding that when parents are going at it, you know, sometimes it's just time for a timeout. It's time just to take a timeout. It's time for us because there's sometimes the tension can be so high that there's nothing good that's going to come out of that moment. And so it is at those times that parents have to be mature. Okay, kids have to be mature. Okay, we all have to be mature to say, wait a minute, what do I need to do to help me get through this moment? So I know for me, if I ever got really tense in a situation, tense in my relation, or it was just a difference of opinion, or I felt like my character was attacked, or, you know, my kids might have disrespected me in a way, or whatever it may be. And sometimes I just had to take a time out. Let me go for a walk. Let me go fishing. Let me go to sleep. You know what I'm saying, at night. Let me just, you know what, let me table this. Because if the presence of all this adrenaline, all this testosterone, all this natural instinct to protect and to conquer and to rule and to control is present, then I'm not present enough to be all that I need to be, to move us, not just me, from the one place to the next. So think about it. Rather than get into a battle of who's right and wrong, you know what I'm saying, focus on a plan. Focus on a plan. Take a time out, and instead of saying, you know what, you did this, hey, what is the plan that we have? Okay, you know, maybe it's going for a walk. Like I said, maybe it's doing something different. Okay, maybe it's just allowing each person spend a couple minutes of uninterrupted time talking it out. Like, hey, you know what? 2 minutes. Say what you want to say. I'm just going to listen, and I'm not going to interrupt. Okay, maybe it's that agreement. Okay, but taking a time out, you know what I mean, doesn't means that you can walk away from the situation or you can stay in it. But you put these parameters up here. You put these parameters that actually help you, you know what I mean, to be heard, that helps you to communicate and helps you guys to move forward, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, together. And so again, those are some ways in terms of how do we parent as a team? How do we disagree as a team? How do we go through life? Because in life, 100% of the time, one of the most permanent things in life is change. And one of the most permanent things in life is challenge. So that means, therefore, in our life, we're going to go through change and we're going to be challenged. But it's what we do when we're in it. How do we overcome it? How do we walk through it? That makes all the difference in the world. And so listen, I hope you got some tips out of here, man. How about you? What do? What are your recommendations for how do you parent as a team? How do you able to disagree as parents and still remain a team? What are some of the things that you found? Okay, go ahead and post them. Okay, like, comment, subscribe, and share to these things as well. I want to hear your feedback. Okay, help the community of parents who wants to know what are some ideas. We just need ideas to choose from. And so listen, man, if you guys like this, I really appreciate it. Let me know all your information. Hope all this stuff will be found in the YouTube as well as the books, the resources, man. You can get all this stuff. Okay, Donovan Darris, DonovanDarris.com. Okay, all the resources that you need to help take your life to the next level so you can live all pro as well. You guys be blessed.